There was once a time when we had to watch our favorite movies on a physical format, which was known as a VHS. The VHS format was widely used in the late 20th century, but has since been replaced by newer and more advanced technologies, such as the DVD, the Blu-ray, and of course, streaming. But however, recently, VHS tapes have been starting to gain a bit of a resurgence, and while some people may still own VHS tapes and VCRs in their homes, they are becoming really hard to find these days, and many electronic stores don't carry them anymore. Admittedly, there are some charms to the effects of watching something on VHS. Even though it's inferior to today's standard, there's certainly a nostalgic factor that pulls you back to a simpler time. The VHS used to play an important role in the release of a film, and in a way, the home media release was just as big as a theatrical release. And for the first time in almost 20 years, the VHS could be the big retro item from the past to have a resurgence, as for many people who grew up watching films on tape, have a sentimental value attachment to them, leading to a desire to revisit their childhood memories by watching movies on tape again. Now, even though streaming is the main source to watch movies and shows, and with the physical media market slowly declining, with stores like Target and Best Buy getting rid of the physical media, streaming video services like Netflix, Hulu, and Disney Plus are convenient, but they all come with a price. And many people these days are getting tired of subscription service fees, and are overwhelmed by the amount of content available. You just have so much choices now, and you could feel like nothing ever appeals to you. And you can definitely have a better viewing experience with a decent 4K Blu-ray setup. But I don't think anyone could claim that VHS or even DVDs can have better sound or visuals than even the lowest options on a streaming service. Now, that's not what watching something on VHS is really about though. For sure, it's about nostalgia and connecting with the physical media of your childhood, and having access to films that haven't made it to streaming or gone to 4K remaster. And while some viewers find an alternative experience to the curated algorithms of streaming platforms, others find a more hands-on experience with the VHS. Because with the VHS, it practically meant that you physically owned it, which can feel more personal than accessing content online, as it allowed you to purchase or rent a piece of physical media that gave you the ability to rewatch your favorite movies or shows at home anytime you wanted. See, before VHS came along, there really wasn't any other affordable way to watch movies at home, unless you were lucky enough to catch it on TV. So when VHS came into the picture along with the Betamax, it really changed the way people watch movies in their home, as one of the major selling points about VHS was it allowed you to record live TV broadcasts directly from the TV, and this would range from TV shows to sporting events, and of course movies.
Terrific! But suppose it's over 3 hours. Relax. Panasonic VHS tapes up to 4 hours of sports, movies, specials on one cassette. Wow. This VHS is for me. You caught the whole game. Best catch of the day. Yeah.
And this form of physical ownership made it feel special for the consumer, as it allowed deeper engagement by creating a sense of community with others who had the same interests as you did. Back then, people would have to take a trip to the video rental store, where you could have a more social and tactile experience, walking through the aisles and discovering new and old movies. You could even ask the staff in the front what movies they recommended for you to rent, and there was a place where people could escape into a world of wonder and excitement. And this form of physical media is what also helped the rise of the Blockbuster and Hollywood Video to become the biggest video rental store chains.
Now get unlimited 2-for-1 rentals for 30 days, just $9.99 at Hollywood Video.
And when the DVD format would arrive in 1995, it also created an extra value to the consumer by having creative menus, special features, and bonus content. Not to mention that DVDs also lasted a longer lifespan than VHS, since the major downside of VHS tapes was that the picture quality could degrade over time, especially when playing a tape multiple times. Now, even though DVDs were starting to take over the world around the time when I was born in the late 90s, I remember a lot of people still watched movies on VHS, so there's really no specific day when VHS tapes truly became obsolete. Something that had happened in the early 2000s when DVDs started gaining popularity and entered the shelves of video rental stores, while others think it didn't happen until 2006, when the last major Hollywood film to be released on VHS was A History of Violence. But however, even though that was considered the true end of the VHS era, many people still watch films on this format, and VCRs were also still being produced while DVDs, Blu-rays, and even streaming started taking over. But the original purpose of VCRs, which was recording videos from the TV, is what became less relevant with the rise of on-demand viewing and digital live TV recording, and the final VCR would be made in 2016, 10 years after the last VHS was released. So, in an age of digital streaming, how could the VHS have a retro revival? And well, I think there's another retro physical format that we can look back on that also had a resurgence, which was the vinyl record. The vinyl began to have a resurgence in 2007 when they started to gain popularity again, and this was primarily due to a wave of nostalgia amongst older generations, wanting to revisit their memories associated with the format. Because just like VHS, vinyl records provide a physical object to hold and interact with, including cover art and liner notes, which creates a more authentic listening experience. Because unlike digital, analog technology arguably offers better quality, and this tangible experience is what brought people back to the physical music industry, as it became a serious staple for music collectors and a way to help support artists. And as in 2024, vinyl sales continue to surpass CD sales for the second year since 1987. And while streaming platforms are more convenient, nothing beats putting a brand new vinyl on.
Why don't you just spend $13 on a CD, man?
First of all, it's because I'm a Beatlemaniac. And second, these sound better.
So while the vinyl has seen a significant comeback in recent years, VHS has not experienced the same level of resurgence due to the available digital video options. But in many ways, I think both vinyl records and VHS tapes invoke strong feelings of nostalgia for people who grew up with them. Because for everything that VHS is and for all its flaws, I think watching something on VHS can be beneficial and also offer an experience that digital formats can't offer. Because you have complete control over playback. You don't have to worry about your Wi-Fi connection or any buffering time in the middle of the movie. With the VHS, it was easy to use and you were able to start from the place you left off, and it didn't require you having to navigate through menus to access content like DVDs and streaming. Now yes, you did have to rewind the tape, especially if you wanted to avoid that blockbuster fee. And by the time you were done rewinding it, you were usually getting bombarded with a bunch of FBI warnings and previews at the beginning of the tape. It wouldn't just jump straight to the movie like streaming, Blu-rays, or even DVDs. Now I know some of those older DVDs and even some of those older Blu-rays did have some trailers that you could skip through, but before those formats came along, VHS was one of the only few ways to watch previews at home, and there was always a benefit to that because it was a key way to influence people's movie selection choices. And I remember that's usually how I would always find out about movies or shows that I had never seen or heard of before. Like if I had never watched Ice Age on VHS as a kid, I would have never even known that Bernie Mac had his own show.
Got kids?
Oh, Lord!
Get Bernie.
Do you have any new sources of stress in your life?
The Bernie Mac Show, Wednesdays on Fox.
And on top of that, you were even able to potentially keep the original version, which later might be censored or altered when it gets released on home media. See, sometimes when movies will get released on VHS after they're run in theaters, they often contain edits or changes to certain scenes, particularly oddities that weren't caught well in theaters. This is because movies that were generally released on VHS was usually the original version that was seen in cinemas, which is why some collectors prefer to keep their VHS tapes. Examples include movies like The Lion King, which had a few changes that were different in later releases from the VHS version, which ended up with some scenes that had some new animation done, including an odd scene where the dust spells out the word sex, which was later gone in later DVD releases. And another famous example was Who Framed Roger Rabbit, a film that was originally filled with racy and off-color gags, including the infamous Jessica Rabbit flash scene where there's a brief moment of nudity after she's flung out of the car. This scene ended up being so controversial that the film was edited and censored for later home media releases, with her dress being adjusted to cover her up, and these scenes are only available in its original Laserdisc and VHS release. And I mean, while these changes don't necessarily change the movie, at the same time it does, and part of the reason why a film was so impressive is appreciating a movie in its original format, because when you watch these movies on streaming and even Blu-ray, you're most likely not going to get the original version that was available at the time when these movies came out. So for all the qualities that VHS tapes still offer, does that mean that it can have the same comeback as vinyl and cassette tapes? And well, here's the thing. While there is a growing interest in VHS tapes amongst collectors because of the nostalgia they bring, it is unlikely to become the primary way for people to watch movies again. Because if people start buying tapes again, they'll have to use old VCRs to refurbish them, since no new companies manufacture VHS players anymore, and finding new equipment nowadays is damn near impossible. So for new VCRs to be widely available again, they will have to develop new VCRs with modern outputs that offer better features and sound quality. That way VHS can become more accessible to a wider audience, but that doesn't mean that VHS will come back. Vinyl and cassette tapes are analog, and aside from the nostalgic reasons, analog technology does offer better quality. And before we start seeing DVDs making a comeback, we'll need to see if VHS has a revival. I'm sure in about 10 years from now, we'll probably be getting new limited edition movies released on VHS for collectors. Cause you know, like they say, eventually everything comes back.
Video, what you wanna watch?